How's it, everyone? My name is John. I'm going to talk about, I'm the sort of black sheep in the room, talking about podcasting, not necessarily music, but they are very related, as I'll explain. Sort of podcasting is, the way I look at it, it's sort of like the music industry of the 90s. It's very independent, it's still developing. And this morning I just want to talk a little bit about a bird's eye view about the industry itself, and I think it'll be very helpful. So a little bit of background. I started podcasting in 2009, and it was quite unique because I hadn't been fired from radio yet. So I was starting it because I wanted to start it. I was really into podcasting. I was on 5 at the time. And believe it or not, I only remember this now, my podcast was called the Official South African Music Industry Podcast, where I was interviewing people from the industry to try and figure out how it worked. I was in the music industry for a long time, and I've spent the last sort of, I guess, decade pivoting into this new space, and it's very cool, very exciting, and moving very fast. I now run the Africa Podcast Network. We are the largest podcasting network in Africa. We're working with a lot of the major podcasters, content creators, YouTubers across the continent. We're building infrastructure across Africa to really support the industry. We also run and own Amped Studios, who some of you may know. It is the empowerment hub in Johannesburg. It's a free studio for artists, for podcasters. We've been running for 6 years. We have a community of 15,000 people. And many stars like Tyler came through Amp Studios, Mac G came through Amp Studios, a lot of people. So that's part of our infrastructure, very much about the development of industry. And what has been very exciting about the podcasting space, and I'm going to move into there just now, is that I'm a difficult person, and over the years in the music space, I butted heads a lot with the industry. And a lot of it was because the passion for me and my team and the business that we work on is about driving revenue to creators. And a lot of the ideas we came up with and a lot of the projects we came up with that were about developing South African talent in the music space or developing bridges between the local and the international space, I was met constantly with massive resistance because the industry is structured, the rights holders have ownership and control over decisions. So to be like a rogue lighty coming up with stuff that's it wasn't welcome. I was in constant battle with the music industry, and I found it very frustrating, and I made a lot of enemies. It's taken a lot of time to build up those relationships again. And it's because I was naive about the structure of the industry. But I learned a lot. And in podcasting, what is really cool, and what our entire business has been focusing on, is that there is no infrastructure yet. And we're building a creator-centric infrastructure, the way I always felt or hoped that the music industry could be, where the creators led and owned the content, that owned the narrative. And that is really an opportunity that is evolving in real time. I've spent the last 2 years working in the international space, studying really deeply what's happening in America and in Europe, and seeing what can we borrow, what we can bring here, because the innovation in podcasting is happening in Africa. We're not behind, we're actually ahead. And that has been a real shock to me, but has inspired us and should be inspiring people interested in podcasting. It is an amazing time for a fledgling media industry that is growing really, really fast. So, let me take a step back and let's just play a little game. And that is just to look at this podcasting space. Does anyone know when podcasts first started, the first ever podcast? I want to take a guess. 1999, someone says. Anyone else? Does anyone remember, or is it you just throwing out? Just give me another couple of guesses. We've got a 1999. 2020? 2020? Wow, you definitely had a boom in 2020, but it wasn't invented in 2020. Anybody else? 2012. Okay, so the first ever podcast, and this is just how fledgling this industry is, was 2003. It was this guy called Adam Curry. I just met him in Dallas. The guy's the biggest rock star in podcasting. It's like having, Ozzy Osbourne in the room. Like these conferences, we're like the nerds of the industry, right? When he's at the podcasting conferences, he is like a total rock star. He's the god of podcasting. He is like a tech nerd who built the first ever RSS feed. Do you know what an RSS feed is? Does anyone know what RSS stands for? Really simple syndication. It's like the simplest tech, right? He built this first ever RSS feed. The first thing he ever broadcast on it was a Grateful Dead song. And then the second thing he always wanted to be on radio, he broadcast a conversation with his mate. That's the first ever official podcast, a Grateful Dead song and that. And in 2005, Steve Jobs called him up and said, hey, I dig what you're doing. We want to integrate it into Apple. I want to call it a podcast. And the Microsoft guys went bananas. They tried to fight for the naming rights to not allow it to be called a podcast, but it was. So that was the fledgling sort of beginning, and then this new media space just started to evolve. Now let's fast forward and see, does anyone remember the first ever podcast that was huge, that you heard of? Someone said Joe Rogan, but I'm sure there's one earlier than that you might remember. It was 2014, and it was an investigative journalism podcast. Anyone? No one remember the name Serials? Does anyone remember Serials? No. So Serials was the first ever monstrous podcast that took over the whole world. In 2014, people started talking about podcasting. Now, we're only 10 years ago with that. It was the first ever hit song podcast with Serials, right? And then, does anyone remember, this is supposed to be a game, but I'm just saying stuff, right? Okay, does anyone remember there was a podcast that was in someone's garage that became really big, and there was a moment where the President of the United States went into his garage, pre-Joe Rogan, and did an episode in the guy's garage. Does anyone remember that? Does anyone remember when Barack Obama went into the WTF podcast? Come on, guys. So that was 2014, right? 2015, around then. The President of the United States went into somebody's garage to record a podcast. And the point of this game, by the way, are the milestones of podcasting, building up to the journey of this new media. Then there's the Joe Rogan. Who remembers when Joe Rogan smoked a spliff with Elon Musk on a podcast? Right. Okay, finally, as soon as I say dacha, everyone's on it, right? Now, this was a really important milestone in podcasting, not because they were smoking dacha. I mean, it woke up the world. Now that episode, just that episode, had more viewers than the Game of Thrones finale episode that came out at the same year, right? It has, and then Joe Rogan from that episode beats the finale of Game of Thrones for every episode for the next 4 years. Joe Rogan's podcast in 2024 is not bigger than CNN. He's 3 times bigger than CNN. He's bigger than CNN, NBC, and MSNBC combined per episode. That's a single podcaster, right? These are the milestones that are building this new media. Now let's come home. 2020-ish, who was the podcaster who sold out the Coca-Cola Dome? The podcaster, not Caspaniel. That's your industry. You're in my industry now. No one remember when Mac G hit 1 million subs on YouTube and sold out the Coca-Cola Dome? A podcaster in 2020 sold out the Coca-Cola. Did anyone not know that? Right, so this is important cultural stuff, right? This is this journey that we're on. Okay, let me speed it up a bit. So let's just look at the last 18 months, right? Does anyone have any memories about podcasts? I mean, what's so funny is less than 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I was doing a conference where I asked people, how many people in the room know what a podcast is? And 50% of the people put their hands up, and the other didn't know what it was. Like, the speed at which this industry is moving is bananas. Now, looking at the last 18 months, what podcasts or podcasting events have struck you in any shape or form, local or international? Shout something out. Shits and Gigs is coming to Shits and Gigs. You know who's bringing Shits and Gigs out? Big concerts, bro. Like big concerts are bringing a podcast to South Africa. Okay, that is a major milestone. Well shout. Anybody else?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Nice, very, very nice. What about the fact, and again, we don't want to go down the Trump rabbit hole, that Donald Trump's election campaign was focused on podcasting, where his opponent, she spent $1.4 billion on traditional media. And Trump smashed, in terms of engagement, in terms of vote, he smashed her with a podcast. And now they have podcasts in the White House as part of the media core briefing, right? Does anyone remember recently, I know this game is going on a bit, isn't it? I'm passionate about the subject, right? Gates and McKenzie suing the Open Chats podcast. Did you read about that? Like, podcasting is making the news every day. Did anyone see when El Tito had a live kiss on his, it felt like 80s Oprah, right? He had a kiss on his podcast. That's like national news. The podcasting, the point I'm making is, a very long way around. The podcasting space is developing an extremely fast, where even 18 months ago, it was like your sort of shitty uncle that no one wanted to speak to. And now, in this year, it has become a pivotal and central part of mainstream media. However, and this is the beauty of this space, it's completely unregulated, it's completely uncontrolled, it's completely democratized. It has no structure yet. And this is the work that we're doing at APN. It's like building infrastructure for the space because it is a land grab for space. For the first time, independent podcasters, why is that Joe Rogan metric important? Because, and again, I'm not dissing any, the record label, the music industry. I'm saying there is no music industry, there is no record label. Joe Rogan himself is bigger than a major network, right? Mac G by himself is bigger than radio stations, right? Anyone watching Cizwe's SMWX podcast? Who's watching the news on it, right? Over 8 million views in the last 30 days. And now these are not Rams TV views or researched radio metrics that they're selling your advertiser. These are verifiable, actual people watching the show. And that podcast by itself is having a significant impact on the politics and how people feel about the ANC and the government. That and a few other podcasts like Sona and other new ones that are happening, they are having, Dan Cord is a good one, are having a significant impact on what is happening in podcasting. So these are the sort of space that we're in that is really cool. And that leads me up to where are we now, and to answer this crazy question, right? Where are we now? Podcasting is evolving into a new thing. And to me, this is the most exciting time that you can start a media empire with nothing. You can start a media empire today that will compete with Prime Media this year if you're smart about what you're doing. And I don't remember ever in my lifetime being in a position where media was so new, so raw, and so coming in at so hot that there is opportunity to still own space in the market or utilize that space to your own advantage. And one of the big insights is that it isn't the same podcasting space that a lot of creators are now thinking about. Easy, this is sort of to do with your question a little bit. It's become a competitive space. Like a year ago, you could start one in your kitchen with your uncle and it would do well, right? But the space has now become highly commercialized, highly profitable, and highly competitive. So what does that mean for new podcasters? It means you now need to start thinking deeply about your podcast. If you look at the global industry, and I loved Arthur's chat, I'm obsessed with this AI, and I'm very deep in researching and understanding how it's impacting this space. And if you really look at what's happening as an ecosystem, what AI is able to do, I mean, to me, again, I don't mean to change the topic here, in Africa, AI is our best friend because we do not have resources, we do not have capital. And AI is the first thing that I've seen that has leveled the playing field for all of us, that we can compete. You can build a bank, using AI if you're smart enough to do that, right? Why did I go down that stupid rabbit hole? Back to the opportunity. What has happened now is that because it's a highly competitive market, more thought has to go into the space. So, for example, if you wanted to get your show on Netflix, right? You've got a gatekeeper. You wouldn't just go up to the commissioning editor of Netflix and say, I've got this cool idea, I want to speak about my feelings towards mental health. Right? What's he going to say? No. Why? You need a format. You need a unique selling point. You need a show structure. You need something that you can show. And when you do those things, even though you get rejected many, many times, you learn when you are pitching. Like if you're taking your song to a record label, you're not just going to put the song on front of him and hope that he's going to like it, right? You need to understand the ecosystem. Now, you don't have a commissioning editor on Netflix. You have something a lot worse, and that's people, and they're awful, right? So when you're now preparing your podcast for YouTube or for audio, because, sorry, the one thing I didn't mention, podcasting is both audio and visual nowadays. When I say podcast, there's no differentiator. I meant to say that earlier. When you are now conceptualizing a podcast, it's really important that you are thinking about these things, that you are treating your podcast, production value is now important. But that doesn't mean you need to spend money because of AI. AI can build you a beautiful studio in your bedroom, right? AI doesn't do anything. It's about what you're putting into it. So you still need great show concept. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to be a host who's passionate about what you're doing. You need to have a hook. You need to have an angle. You need to know what your show is going to be about. That is the big shift, is that the podcasters coming out now are moving into a space where TV is struggling. Prime Media sell to Canal Plus because they are struggling. Netflix is struggling. And what is happening globally, all the global analytics, people are choosing YouTube podcast over Netflix more and more. People are shifting to watch their content in the space. So you are now, when you put your podcast up, you're competing not with other podcasters, with the Netflix movie, with what's on DSTV and SABC. And that is the level of creativity and execution that you need to put into it. But there are no barriers of entry. So if you are ambitious, if you are really passionate about it and you see a gap in the market, this is the time to do it. Hence, I don't think I've ever said hence before. The answer to this question is yes, if you are following the old show formats. But no, if you are seeing this as media 3.0, right? The new state of media. Hollywood movies are struggling with, this is my ecosystem that I see the opportunity, the commercial opportunity. Hollywood movies are struggling because now more and more you can do stuff with technology. Television stations are struggling and they've lost the youth market. The youth don't give a shit about traditional media, right? They don't give a shit about being lectured to. They want to be part of the conversation. They can make a podcast tomorrow. They don't care. They're gonna, right? So this collapse into the podcasting free space is happening in real time. We are approached by all the major media companies to ask us to help them with their content strategies to try and capture the youth market, which is a huge indicator that this amalgamation of these industries, it's coming into the podcasting is becoming TV. TV is becoming podcasting. And the revenue is very interesting because we hate subs. We're just not a subs culture in Africa. We don't like subscribing to things. We're one of the few continents where your YouTube subs does not equate to your YouTube listeners because we just don't like pressing subscribe. But the numbers are here, and I just lost my train there. What was I saying? Sorry? No, what is I just said that because I was riffing to try and remember what I was talking about.
TV,
TV, thank you, yeah. So the TV, and thank you, the commercial ecosystem, advertisers, right? So this is just my opinion. Advertising is struggling, right? Media agencies are going out of business, they're getting smaller, advertising agencies are struggling. Big brands are spending less money on marketing and more money on what they're calling programmatic reach, which is like Facebook, Google ads, which are the ads no one cares about. The ads that they're forcing in front of your face. Now, podcasting has the highest conversion rate for brands of any media. It has the highest brand awareness of any media. You're 40% more likely to remember a brand that your favorite podcast spoke about on their podcast, not their social media, on their podcast, than you are on any other media, right? These are stats and awareness. Awareness is the gold standard of branding. Like, how do I get your attention? Do I force my ad in front of you? Or what happens if your podcaster recommends yours in his own language, in his own way, integrated into his show, not skippable? So podcasting is solving this commercial solution for brands. And that's why the answer, the idea of being in this media space now, building your media empire now, it is the convergence of all these industries: podcasting, TV, film potentially. You can make a film for YouTube. I'm sure that's coming. It's happening in Nigeria already. Full funded films on YouTube, making their money back on YouTube AdSense revenue. That's already happening in Nigeria. And the commercial appetite to get involved into the space is still just slow and trying to figure it out. They don't know what it is because it's highly unregulated. So it's a risky market because you might get cancelled. You can't control the podcasters. And these are all the unregulated parts that we're still figuring out together because it's a new media space. And yeah, that is pretty much, I'm really excited to just hear if you have any questions for me. But that's my final word on this is, if you're a natural content, I mean, there are different ways in, whether you're looking at brand building, if you're looking at a commercial opportunity, if you're looking at how you want to get into the space. But if you are a passionate content creator, if you are someone who genuinely sees, like has always wished they had their own TV show, now is the time, more than ever before. Yes, it's harder, but there's nothing stopping your success. And that's why New Podcasters, the New Gen podcast, started 3 months ago, a youth market one. Youth, I don't know if you know New Gen. Very young podcast. They're already at about 100 and 150,000 views an episode weekly, right? In 3 months. Just because they know what they're doing and they understand the marketplace, right? And yeah, that's the end. A nice, undramatic finale. Thank you. Thanks. Oh, Mr.
Thank you, Jon. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, Jon Savage. We're going to open up the floor for, I think, 3 questions because we're trying to catch up time. There's someone here. Okay, practice my Dr. Full media. You.
Good morning, Jon. So you mentioned that you don't care about the old structure of media, right? So would that
I
mean...
do. But I don't care about it.
No, the youth.
Oh, the youth, sorry.
Yeah. So they would watch podcasts. I would watch podcasts. My favorite podcast to watch is Brilliant Idiots, right? But now the question is with streaming. Streaming is involved as well. And how I know about streaming is about the clips. You get Opus clips and Blazer does the AI generating making clips for podcasts and streaming. Does streaming have a threat towards podcasting? That podcasting is a growing industry. But will there be a case where with Speed and Kai's Nap that I think Kai reached 1 million subscribers on Twitch for streaming? In the future, will podcasts somewhat decline because of streaming, or would it be the other way around?
Thank you. That's a really cool question. So interesting. I mean, I don't see podcasting as a threat to any industry, not even radio. Like, the internet is the threat to radio, and there are a lot of radio stations around the world that have adapted really well. I just feel in South Africa we haven't done a good job of adapting into the space, which is why the traditional media here, I feel, it just couldn't move when they needed to move, right? Podcasting is its own animal, and these different media, I don't even think they're going to be called podcasting for that much longer, right? I think it's evolving into the creator economy space. And it's platform agnostic, in my opinion. Like whether you're on Spotify, whether you're on Twitch, whether you're on YouTube, or whether you're on TV, it's all the same thing. The difference, the future that I'm trying to be involved with building is that the creator owns the ecosystem because they own the content, rather than it being a big media empire that's saying, I've got the distribution platforms, you need me, that we can each build, or these independent creators can create their own platforms. And interestingly, there is a huge, huge and fast new trend in the space for live streaming. And you know, the thing I forgot to mention in our milestones thing is that YouTube became the biggest podcasting platform in the world this year. Bigger than Spotify, bigger than Apple for podcasts, right? So, and Spotify are struggling because there's a big demand for live streaming and podcasting, and they can't do it yet. They're trying to figure out, but I'm sure that's going to come next. But so YouTube are eating the market opportunity for live streaming in this podcasting space. And you know, you were saying SMWX, they're live streaming the ad hoc committee on their YouTube channel, you know. So I don't think, I'm worried about the word threat. I feel like it's a shift, like the media is shifting, and audience consumption habits are driving where they're shifting to. So you just need to be where people want to consume. And you know, the shorts, what's happening in TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram, I see these as a funnel, a discovery funnel. One of the biggest problems with podcasting is there's no discovery. Like there's no amazing app that recommends podcasts. You know, anyone who can start a brilliant recommendation engine or website for podcasting is going to own the whole market, because still it's word of mouth. Unlike, you know, music, there's discovery. There's a lot of ways to discover music. In podcasts, it's basically word of mouth. So TikTok and the short form formats are a really great way to get discovery to drive you into the long form engagement platform. I don't know if I answered your question. I was just answering the question I wanted to answer.
It's answered.
Well, did I answer your question?
You did. You did.
Oh yeah, thank you. Cool.
Can you hear me? Cool. John, I got one last question from you. I told him he's not going to give you his CV, just ask a question.
Hi, my name is Jason Benson. I'm a singer-songwriter and music tutor. So while the shift is happening, I think I'm maybe skipping a few steps. Usually these things, they flatline eventually as well. Like right now it's very dynamic, but what would you, if that were to happen, then what would the next phase be of it? I don't know if I'm making sense.
It's a great question, I do, and I have got a great answer that I love that you asked that. So what's so interesting to me is, you know, I've spent a lot of the last year in the international market, and the American market has flatlined. And there's very little innovation. When I go to the podcasting conferences in America versus the UK, or even like a small thing like this, it's so boring. There's so little innovation. They have hit a brick wall, and part of it is that they painted themselves into a bit of a corner. When podcasting first started, America led the charge. And they have infrastructure, they have market dominance, and they have technology that the entire ecosystem works on, except it's audio only. They didn't see video coming, and they've screwed themselves. And the whole industry of the people who are controlling the industry there, they're stuck, because audio technology, you can't just turn on video. Spotify are trying so hard to go up against YouTube. They tried Spotify video, it's been an absolute failure. They just announced last week a partnership with Netflix. I forgot, there's another milestone, Netflix and Spotify partnership. And part of why they're doing that is to try and get, and they're forcing their podcasts off of YouTube, to try and to get them to Netflix, right? But here's the thing, in Africa, this is the coolest part, we were YouTube first. Spotify came here late, right? We love YouTube. So most of our podcasts were YouTube first, and we added audio onto it. Now, the current opportunity is that video and audio combined is the new market space, and the rest of the world is just catching up on that, whereas we're ahead of the curve by far. The technology that's being created, This technology we're working on was an amazing guy called Ike from Nigeria who runs a company called Jamit. What he's doing in the innovation space for podcasting, no one in the world is even thinking that way. So I think the answer to your question might be the next wave is this sort of TV podcasting hybrid, which is easy to do with the current technology, and that's why if you're going to get in, you should be in.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
One more time, Jon Savage.